Would you have a document that lays out the conditions Canada's prisoners live in? You've given us a general overview of your programs, which is fine, but is there something a little more specific, say a brochure which contains services offered by Corrections Canada? Does it exist, and if so, can we get a copy?
We have information in terms of the square footage of the cells, the times of program space that are available. We can provide you a document that outlines the kind of a general layout of an institution, the kind of space that's available. I think, Senator, in terms of your the first part of your question in earlier discussions about comparisons, particularly in Canada, I think there was a lot of discussion on a previous bill, Bill C-15, which in relation to remand and the conditions of remand in the provincial and territorial systems versus sentence capacity in the province and territories, and then the difference between all of those and the federal system. As you can imagine, our facilities are meant to hold offenders for longer periods of time, averages in sentences of 4-ish years, where the average stay in a provincial facility is 30, 60, 90 days, depending on the province or territory. So the types of layouts of those facilities are different for that very reason. Now, some of the more modern construction that's going on in some of the provinces are they have requested our standards for building facilities, and they're looking at that and taking that into account. But we can share with you, with the committee, the information regarding our square footage, meterage for our facilities and offenders.
Dans le fond, l'ensemble des conditions de vie.
In fact, all of these conditions, living conditions taken together in Canada, would be useful for us, and the comparison of those living conditions with those of prisoners in other countries. Second question. Professor Xi told us about a problem which would relate to an increase in the number of prisoners in Canada, and the problems related to prisoners who have been in jail for a long time to reintegrate into society. It seems that the transition period is very long for these people. So do you have any programs or seminars which are given to detainees on how they can adapt once they re-enter society so that they do not re-offend, and so they can go on and live full lives? It's a bit like when people retire, they take retirement courses.
So in writing, and when you're telling us about the square footage, would you please include there both the norms, what is supposed to be available per inhabitant of the prison system, and what is the reality on any given...
No problem, Madam Chair.
And the question about preparation for post-release life is also very pertinent, I think. Merci, Senator Carignan. Je suis désolée.
Thank you, Senator Carignan. I'm sorry to cut you off. Senator Joyal.
Quote from you, page 2. At this time, we do not have any data to assess whether there will be a direct impact on CSIS population levels. In other words, you have not evaluated the three main sections of this bill on trafficking, producing, importing, and the increase of the population that it will bring in your premises.
Senator, we have evaluated, but there was nothing that would indicate to us that there would be any significant increase to the federal population that would require us to make a submission for additional money at this time. However, we would continue if the bill is passed. We'd continue to monitor this post-implementation to see whether there's an impact, and we would have through the normal Treasury Board process an opportunity to make representation for resources through a process that we have anytime there's a significant change in the population numbers.
Your answer surprises me because when we heard the Canadian Centre for Justice Statistics and the end of loss chart at page 12 of the chart, I could give you a copy of it, it's quite clear that those who are sentenced to 12 months in either trafficking, importing, or production will move, of course, to 2 years. And according to the bill, there are 3 sections of the bill, as you know, that deals about 2 years and more. So the testimony that we heard is not at all to the point that the increase of the population will not be significant. On the contrary, when we heard Professor Boyd this morning, and he quote, and I quote from page 4 of his brief, an RCMP study in 205 canvassed all found cases of marijuana cultivation from 1997 to 2003, and noted that there were 3,500 convictions. And then, of course, that will be, all those people will be moved, of course, from 1 year to 2 years, according to these bills. So there, and he calculated roughly that the imprisonment of further 500 marijuana growers in British Columbia each year, to the cost of imprisonment of approximately 57 a year, to a total of almost 30 million annually, bringing 20% of provincial prisoners will be marijuana grower to the 5% that they are representing now. I don't understand why you say the bill will not have a significant impact on the population.
At this point, Senator, the data is not as clear to us that that those numbers are based in something that we could justify in terms of making a financial situation. However, we have the opportunity, like I say, through our normal budgetary processes, that if there was an increase as a result of this and an increase in our population levels, I have a process available to us to make the representation for the appropriate funding to deal with any significant increase. But at this point in time, based on hard numbers that were available to us, there was nothing that would suggest that from an institutional count perspective, there was going to be an increase. But from a community perspective, a community case preparation perspective for provincial offenders and the supervision for all the provinces and territories except Ontario and Quebec, there was, and that's why the $23.3 million over 5 years, or $6.4 million increase to our budget goes with this bill.
Well, I don't understand your answer on the basis of the impact of this bill. If the government is serious about the impact of this bill, it should increase significantly the population prisons. You're telling us today that it won't increase significantly within the budgetary constraints that you have now. You stand by your answer. It will be tested by the evaluation of that there is in the bill. As you know, after 2 years, there's an evaluation, and we will know if you were right or wrong today. I suggest to you, sir, that maybe you should use some kind of leeway for the increase of the population, because according to the statistics we got, that's not exactly what you're telling us this morning.
No, but again, Senator, I have the ability through a mechanism through accessing the Treasury Board, that if in 6 months' time, 1 year's time, before the 2-year review process was completed, that if there was an increase, I have the ability to go back and make representation as it relates to this bill. At this point, though, the numbers are not concrete enough for me to make the assumptions that these individuals are making.
Fascinating though this is, I have to say thank you, Senator Joyal, and turn to Senator Angus.